Hello, let's start our topic from the birth of the system. Before people settled down, that is, before societies were formed, they were hunters, gatherers, and farmers in small communities, and they could meet their needs that they did not have in return for barter and services, albeit with difficulty. Initially, they used precious metals as a means of exchange. This made life much easier, and finally money was invented. With the spread of settled life, they transformed their small communities into entities with superior administration, such as large kingdoms and empires. They transferred all administration to this system they established. As a result, common benefit was achieved. People knew that the benefit of society was also for the benefit of individuals. They established the tax system. Thus, they could have a strong society and administration with taxes taken proportionally from everyone. People all over the world began to belong to these societies. Even today, there are small tribes that are untouched. These are small exceptions that live completely isolated. Wars have always existed. Societies fought for many reasons, such as language, religion, race, land, natural resources, precious metals, and the desire to get rich. Even in the era of empires, these governments discovered the special power of money. The more they spread the money they printed across the geography, the faster and more exponentially their treasuries became richer. Many people in power were engaging in politics, getting society into war, and finding a way to indirectly take the wealth they seized for themselves. Society, on the other hand, saw that they were growing with the expansion of their lands, and fanatic nations were born. They were arguing to society that their own society should be stronger than other societies. However, even if religion was the cause of many wars, when we look at history, it is clear that the only reason for the expansionist policy of society was to impose its own money and authority. So much so that many empires or kingdoms considered it sufficient to use only their own money and did not force religion. They were telling their own warring society that they would collect more taxes from the captured areas. Thus, everything went well. You cannot convince people without making them believe, especially to death and war. There have always been wars within the governments of societies, wars for the throne, people who massacred their own families. It is very clear in many stories in history, kings, sultans, principalities. Today, many societies are governed by democracy as republics or as states where subgroups are dependent on the larger ones. So how does the system work in the period we live in? Except for the exceptional states, the states of all countries are devoid of justice and have enslaved their own people. Unfair income distribution, unequal rights, privileges granted to the rich, the majority of the population being employed in government positions, the resources of the country being given away, tax privileges, and thousands of other problems ensure that a small minority becomes extremely wealthy while condemning the rest to misery. Many current systems have taken people's lives away from them, have not killed them, but have become incapable of recognizing the right to live humanely. The bad education system imposed since childhood educates only those who can keep up with the system, far from questioning, and is a system that is rote learning, easygoing, unproductive, unthinking, and obedient. While the children of the rich have always had an education system outside of this system, many children from lower-class families cannot even access this stupidified basic society education system. Religions are always used to keep people in a certain state of numbness. This is clearly seen in politics. It has become integrated with people, thanks to an education system that has become a tradition, has been inherited from birth, cannot go beyond tradition, and is far from questioning. For example, a child born into a family that belongs to religion is a member of that family religion and has to own and be attached to everything in the society she is born into. The fate of the child depends on the education system and economic power of her family. This situation continues in this way for generations. Of course, there are always exceptions. Everything depends on the opportunities offered to the individual, her own capacity and luck. How does the economy work? Today, although there are 193 countries that have declared their independence and are recognized by other world states, there are countries that are not recognized by other countries, or are recognized only by a few countries. For example, Countries such as the Turkish Republic of Southern Cyprus, Kosovo, and Taiwan are among these. Many countries print their own currency, while some use the currencies of other countries that are accepted in the world. For example, Ecuador uses the American dollar. Unions formed by countries such as the European Union use a common currency such as the euro. Although it is constantly changing, approximately 180 official currencies are used in the world. Normally, the amount of money that a country should print should simply be equal to the growth rate of that country, so that it can have as much money as its system needs due to the growth rate of its economy. However, it never works that way. In general, in many countries, central banks have the authority to print money. In addition to this authority, the most important duties of the country are also left to this institution. This institution has the most important responsibilities affecting the entire country, such as price stability, inflation, keeping the money supply under control, and monitoring the financial system. For this very reason, it must be independent of politics and all other state institutions. States generally make budgets, determine financial policies, and set targets. In order to do these, they need statistics with absolute accuracy, and this is where it all begins. If these institutions receive orders entirely from the political administration and are not free, it is not even sincere that the politicians who govern the country will not drag the country into the abyss, push the people into poverty, and cause massive inflation. The logic is as follows. The current situation is determined by looking at the data for the country's administration. Unemployment, inflation, and the policies implemented are compared to the previous period. Different accepted scientific policies are implemented according to the program that is made, depending on many situations such as whether the targets are met, whether the previous balance sheet has a deficit. However, these are still not as they should be. Politicians' concerns about protecting their own authority, transferring wealth to themselves and those who support them, and many practices and tricks that are far from the state ideology are implemented. For example, the program implemented when there is an election soon, and the program after the election are completely different. Thanks to the manipulations in statistics, everything is arranged according to the profit of the politicians, not the profit of the countries as desired. According to political science, people make decisions by reviewing their economic situation in elections. But most of the time, economic balances are changed by the current politician, considering their own political interests. As election periods approach, even the people in the lower segment experience a temporary spring. Purchasing power is kept high, and inflation is kept low. Many people are employed even if they are not needed in state cadres. The politician who benefits from the state budget does not consider the financing given to his party sufficient, and in return for the promise of privileged use of many elements belonging to the country, to the rich, he receives endless economic support. The system thus receives endless economic support. Unnecessary institutions, foundations, universities are established. New social projects are designed. Economic power is mentioned. Prosperity is mentioned, and countless promises are made. Also, if the politician can be shown as a victim or is found an enemy, that politician wins the election 90% of the time. As a result, as in many stories, the people who try to run their own ships are impoverished both directly and indirectly. The system continues to operate in this way in an endless cycle. The country's resources are given away, the state's coffers are emptied, and the purchasing power of the people is taken away from them thanks to the money printed without any backing. Again, thanks to the excessive money printed, inflation is exploded, and in return, high taxes are imposed on the people, and low wage increases are given. People's labor is stolen thanks to the overprinted money, because the only reason for inflation is overprinting. Those who govern the state receive indirect and unfair taxes in this way. Reducing inflation is not in the politician's interest. Inflation does not contribute to the economy at all. Those who govern the state make mega projects and increase their wealth thanks to these projects. Thanks to inflation, the state cancels its internal debts. In return, the people continue to have their labor stolen. Why don't people resist? because they have been educated to accept obedience and to see the country's administration as sacred. Religious beliefs have been adopted as those who have fewer people are happier, or it has always been drilled into people that this is a divine test, that they should not be rebellious, that they should be grateful. A person must be free by nature. They can adopt any religion they want or deny it all. This is entirely up to the individual. Similarly, the individual must learn not to have their labor stolen economically, should not see it as an enemy. On the contrary, they should learn its deficits and have the ability to use the system that erodes their purchasing power for their own benefit. I tried to explain the system that robs all members of society. The small part that is not robbed is those with large capital. That is, those who have learned to use the system for their benefit. Which side are you on? Do you have financial literacy in the modern sense? Don't worry. Thanks to our channel, we will continue to provide you with the information that will allow you to reach the power you want. Please subscribe to our channel, share with your loved ones, and comment. That's all for now from our Economic Awakening video. Stay well.